And we're live here. It's the final day of the 2021 college softball season as Game 3 of the Women's College World Series will take place at 3 o'clock Eastern. It'll be Oklahoma and Florida State. Winner take all. I'm Eric Lopez here. We're getting you set for Game 3. We'll have a preview coming up. We'll be joined by some guests and get you set for Game 3 here. It'll be going at 3 o'clock Eastern. I know a lot of people are still chattering about that. As I've said, it's going to be on ESPN. That's good news because originally it was supposed to be on ESPN 2, but they moved it to ESPN. So as Victor said on the postgame show, the jump got jumped to ESPN 2 today for all you NBA audience people. So here we are, last game of the season in 2021. The Sooners coming from behind to win 6-2. Make sure you set, now we'll see if that momentum carries over to today when it comes to that. Of course, we want you to chime in with your comments, ask some questions. We'll try to read them off and get you set for any questions you have leading up to Game 3. We'll be on for about up until 2 o'clock, maybe at the most Eastern. So it'll be about an hour here as well. And should be a lot of fun, to say the least. We'll have a couple of guests. Jenna, Becerra, the former Stanford Cardinal, analyst for the Pac-12 Network, will be joining us in a little bit to kind of break down this Game 3 and kind of share her thoughts on the Women's College World Series as well. And should be a lot of fun to see what happens there. And it's going to be very interesting how the conditions should be very good. Should be good weather and should be good conditions. We'll see how that goes. And we'll certainly have a great opportunity to expand here. Either we're going to have the biggest upset in Women's College World Series history, really. I mean, if Florida State were to pull this off, I think it would be a stunner. It would be usually the favorites win. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time where an underdog won the Women's College World Series. You got to go way back. It just doesn't happen, especially since they've gone to the best of 3 championship series. I think that's certainly a big factor. But at the end of the day, you also have a situation where if Oklahoma wins, they would be national title number 5 for Patty Gasso. So very interesting to see. Interesting to see how both teams come out early with a 2 o'clock Central start time. Humidity will be a factor in that one. And certainly will be fascinating to see what's going on there. So should be a lot of fun. Should be a ton of fun. And let's get messages here. So what is the keys to today's game? I think for Oklahoma is kind of continue the momentum, get off to a good start. Don't get press. And I think that was something that was fascinating to me in listening to that they admit that they tend to press a little bit in the first 3 innings when nobody is, they don't score. And I think for Florida State, the interesting thing there is you could argue they've outplayed Oklahoma the majority of this series. They've led most of the series. They had the tough 6th inning. They were 6 outs away from the national title. So I expect both teams to come out ready to go. Who could play a clean game, who makes a mistake early. I think it's going to be a very key factor. As Kelly is chiming in here, pitching needs to be good. I agree. I think pitching, I could be wrong. I actually think this could be a much well-pitched, low-scoring game. I think both teams are not going to hesitate to pull the trigger and bring in a pitcher in relief. I brought this up yesterday about the possibility, and for especially in Florida State's case, do they just go base by committee, have each pitcher go through the Oklahoma lineup, for example, one time through the order? I still think that could be in play, or at least start out in the second scene. I don't think you're going to see what we've seen, like, for example, in Game 1, where Oklahoma kind of let Nicole May in there longer than they should have. So I think that's a key factor to keep an eye. I think if everybody gets in trouble early, that will be a key factor. As Victor is joining us, by the way, he is in the airport. Is that where you're at?
Yes. I am live here at the Will Rogers Airport. Happy Championship Thursday to everybody here. Should be an interesting day today, sir.
So where so what time is your flight?
Flight is at 2:05 Central Time. So yes, I will literally be either in the air or getting ready to fly for first pitch of Game 3.
That is wild. Have you checked in? Are you checked in? Are you ready to go here for your flight?
Just been checked in. Just went through pre-check right now, so everything is good. Ready to rock and roll for today's game.
Well, what do you expect? What do you expect to happen here while we have you for a few minutes here? What do you expect to happen here while you're literally in the air? The game will be on ESPN. That should help you at least follow it while you're up in the air. But what do you expect? I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I feel like this just got the makings of being a lower scoring game than people think. I think everybody assumes the offense will have the advantage because they've seen all the pitchers. I counter with I think both staffs will not hesitate and pull the trigger if a pitcher gets in trouble.
Yes, I agree. You could see potentially, and OU fans are already saying there's going to be no Nicole May today, which I kind of figured might be the case regardless. So that probably guarantees that either Warris is going to start again because she looks so smooth and was in command outside of the Mason home run last night, or we see Shannon Sale with a very quick hook to go to G in the bullpen if she gets into any sort of trouble.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think this is a Shannon Sale Juarez game for Oklahoma. Who starts, that remains to be seen. From that standpoint, we'll find out. We'll probably find out by the time you're boarding. But I think for Florida State, I mean, I've thrown this theory out again. I mentioned it to you last night as Vic's sitting down in there. We're going to get a good tour of the Will Rogers Airport here. I was there. I believe I did the Will Rogers Airport in 2018. It's some good lines there. What do you think? What do you think of my idea that I would not be shocked. I don't think Lonnie's going to hesitate. If whoever she starts, if they get in trouble, especially if it's the second time in the order, I think she'll pull her because it's the last game of the year. Yeah. Why? You're not going to save anybody.
No, it's all hands on deck today. So and I think Coach Christy Fox, when we had her on the post-game show earlier last night, mentioned this. You're going to go out with your best, and there's a higher probability than not you're going to see Juarez. Even if Sale pitches well, you may see Juarez come in to try and close the door on the national title if OU has the lead. And if you're Florida State, after kind of sleeping on it about it today, what Coach Fox said about maybe having all three Florida State pitchers go through the Sooner order one time is a viable strategy. The question is going to be, who do you start the game with as the opener? Who do you bring in second, and who do you bring in to, relatively speaking, close the game? If it was me, I would go Sandercock first, then I would go Arnold, and then I would go Watson to close it out. That's just me. But we want to see what happens with that.
I think Watson might get in earlier than that. Remember, she didn't pitch last night. I found that interesting. I would not be shocked if she started. In fact, I think my prediction right now is she starts Watson with Sandercock in relief.
Okay, I can see that happening as well. Because look, Lonnie's not afraid. Look, Lonnie has shown, and 13 complete games all year tells you that she's not afraid to go to the bullpen early and often. So would it shock me if it's Watson and then Sandercock in the bullpen? No, but nothing Lonnie will do will surprise us anymore because she has trust in all three arms to do whatever role that they need to do to get the job done for Florida State.
I agree. I want to ask you this. You've been there every day, so you've seen the games in the afternoon. Describe how does the ball fly in the early day, in the afternoon? It's going to be a 2:00 game versus nighttime. Compare the conditions, not just from a temperature standpoint. I'm talking about the conditions in the afternoon versus night as far as the ball fly. Does the ball fly deeper one way or the other as far as carrying more and things like that you think could be an impact here in this game to look for?
If you look at the scores of the games that are in the afternoon as opposed to the games at night, there's slightly higher. It's not that much of a difference, but the ball does jump a little bit more at night than it does in the afternoon. I mean, with Oklahoma, it doesn't matter where they're playing day or night. The ball jumps onto their bats regardless. But the scoring has been lower in the afternoon sessions as opposed to the night sessions. One thing I do want to stress, though, and I brought this up last night, it's going to be 90 degrees at first pitch, and it's going to feel like in 100. And the field temperature is going to be 105, 110. So you're going to have to make sure that you've been hydrated properly from last night and tonight, that you got all your treatment, that you're doing everything that you need to do to get ready for today's game, because there's no other game after this. Your season is over one way or another after today. So you got to be ready to go full out and leave nothing in the tank.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be curious too how both teams handle the early innings. Do you see teams sacrificing bunting early to get runners in score position to try to get a run early? I'll be curious about that. Because I really am curious how both teams handle the first couple innings, the emotions. It's a big game three, the conditions. Do you sense any tightness, nerves? I think it's something that I'll be looking for once this game starts.
And something that you brought up yesterday, Eric, that Oklahoma admitted that this is the beauty of being in an airport. You can hear announcements over here while I'm talking. Oklahoma admits that they start the press when they don't score in the first 3 innings. So if you're Florida State, you have to stick with what worked for you last night. Get runs early the first time through the order and put the pressure on Oklahoma. And Kelly, I agree with you. Oklahoma does have to start better because Oklahoma really didn't get their bats go. Take out game one, but he got those 2 home runs off Watson. They really didn't get going until the end of the second time and then the third time through that order. So OU has to get a better start today if they want to take home the national title.
I agree. The interesting thing is, and leave it to softball to sidetrack this, put distractions in the game.
Shocking.
The conversations continue, Victor, in the morning and the afternoon. People talking about the 3:00 start time. Obviously, a lot of the TV.
Look, I'm going to be as clean as possible because there are people near me, and I don't want to really go off.
Yeah, no, not in this day and age. Not in this day and age. Let me do that.
Y'all need to calm the heck down in terms of television. And there's a writer of Tulsa who wrote, softball should this game be prime time, 7:00? Yes. But is it easy to make those switches? No. People think that just because you're an executive, you can snap your fingers and a game can magically appear on prime time television.
By the way, knowing the people involved, trust me, I'm telling you, every door was looked at. Every scenario was looked. I don't think this was like, all right, let's screw it. Let's just throw it at 3:00 Eastern.
Look, Eric,
I'm telling
you. Before yesterday, Eric, the game was going to be on ESPN2.
Correct.
And they switched it to ESPN. So that's a big win in that regard because of the numbers that they've been getting in. And of course, we're still waiting for what the numbers.
But you know what I find amusing about this? Oh, yes. Victor's going viral.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
What's so ironic about this? We just spent a few days ago people arguing about their games should not be played at 2 a.m. Oh, what TV has too much control over this stuff. Now people are complaining like, what do you want?
Y'all be hustling. Softball fans be hustling backwards generally. Y'all complain about games being played starting at 12:00, 12:50 Eastern time, and now you complain about games starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Which can't have
it both ways, people. Right. What do you want? Seriously.
Right. We don't know yet the numbers for game 2. That's probably not going to come out, ironically, until when Victor lands. Victor will have the numbers when he lands in the airport. Or maybe tonight.
We won't know. We likely won't know until a national champion is crowned.
Yeah. Look,
what the numbers were for game 2.
It is disappointing from this. Look, the game will be fine. It's fine.
Yes.
People move on. It's not the first time a championship game's been played in the afternoon. All right, so let's settle down. But and people like me that follow this on a daily basis that likes to use these numbers to make a point. about softball. Yeah, I'm disappointed that the third game is not at night. Yes, I wish it was on ABC because I already know the Aaron Brockovich story because I watched the movie with Julia Roberts some 25 year, whatever year that movie came out. But it's not as easy to do it in 24 hours, which is, again, why I said be careful what you wish for. For all of you that want to expand the tournament in the schedule, you're going to run into conflicts. So if you're willing to accept conflicts, you Bleav that expanding the schedule is for the best for the game, that's fine, but you're going to run into conflicts like this as far as is concerned, as far as what channels you're going to be on. It wouldn't be the last time. Look, you can move this game to Friday and you're going to have conflicts because the baseball super regionals. You're going to have it's unavoidable. So unless it's something that I talked to Coach Waters about in the pregame yesterday, unless softball considers doing what baseball's been talking about really pushing the season back to the point where you have less competition, start the season in March and then have the World Series in late June, July, where there's less competition. That would be the only other way to avoid these type of issues from a TV standpoint. Look, it's going to happen. It's no secret. Softball is doing well popularity. And regardless of what it gets in the ratings today, you're going to have people like you and me, me, Victor, everybody that's going to scream for the popularity of the sport while other softball contents disappear for the offseason. Anyway, so let's get into the other topics.
I thought you thought I was the petty one today.
I'm just saying there's no offseason over here.
No.
Anthony Robinson jumping in with a question. Eric, how you and Victor handle the pitching order for both teams? All right, let's do that, Victor. I will go first. Let's start. Which team do you want to start with, Vic?
Let's start with Florida. Let's start with Oklahoma because they'll be the ones that will be playing defense first.
If this is me, I would just go with Juarez. Go with the hot hand. I'm old school and have Sale back her up. But
I would go. Yep.
Go ahead.
I would go the opposite, honestly. I would go Sale, and then give her one time through the order, and then if she gets into any sort of trouble, then bring in G in relief.
Well, I think we both are in the same page of the two pitchers.
Yes.
It just depends on how you want to do it. How about Florida State? I think they're going to go Watson first, kind of like the opener, kind of like the Rays do. And then I think you're going to see Sandercock. And then I think those – and then Arnold maybe.
I would go Sandercock, then Arnold, and then if you have to lead, then you bring Watson. Because if you look at what Watson did and what Sandercock did, they held Oklahoma in check the first two times through the order. It was the third time around was when Oklahoma got to them. So if you limit them to 1 to 2 times max through that order, then that optimizes your successes, optimizes your chances to win the national title.
We'll see. Some people are saying Sandercock starting. We'll see. I mean, they might start Sandercock. I'm not against it. I'm just
right. I
found it interesting that Watson didn't pitch in game 2. So she's the fresher one. Sandercock has pitched in both games, I Bleav, in relief. Relief in game 1, started game 2, I should say.
Yeah, Sandercock pitched both games. Arnold only pitched in game 2. Watson only pitched in game 1. That's why I'm kind of going with that mindset of you bringing in Watson and Arnold. You're having Arnold, then Sandercock, and then Watson because Arnold is fresher. Sandercock, you want to give her some time to rest because, again, she pitched games 1 and 2. And you bring in Watson because she will be the freshest of all three of them because she hasn't pitched since Tuesday.
Very good. Yeah. So we're gonna get more. We're gonna get much better expert analysis now coming up here, Victor. Victor, why don't you introduce our special guest here that is about to join us?
Yes. Our special guest is a commentator for the Pac-12 Network, and also a proud alum of Stanford, and also hosts the Bleav in Softball podcast, which you can find on your favorite streaming platforms. We welcome Jenna Becerra to our live pregame show, and Mr. Lopez will bring her in and we'll introduce her properly. There she is. Hey, Jenna, how are you?
I'm great. I mean, it's championship Thursday, I guess. It's a Thursday, but whatever. It's championship day.
Yes. Don't worry. Don't worry. I don't know what day it is even. I've been in Oklahoma City for over a week. Trust me.
It's the life we live now.
That's right. That's the life we chose. So, Eric, I'm going to drop off right now. I'll come back at the end of the show to get my.
Well, go ahead and ask a first question, Victor, and then I'll kind of continue from there.
Yeah. So, Jenna, let's get your thoughts on what you've seen so far in the first 2 games and which team has the advantage going into this decisive championship game today.
Well, I think one thing that's been very, very clear throughout this entire World Series, actually, is that neither Oklahoma or Florida State are willing to lose 2 games in a row. Like, they fought their way all the way through the losers bracket. This is the first time that's ever happened, ever, in the history of the Women's College World Series. So, first of all, like, clearly both of these teams have some of those X factor type of ingredients to their success, like buying into the program, playing for each other, just next level energy that you have to fight through the fact that you're tired, to fight through all of the obstacles and adversity that you're facing. Both teams really have that piece. That's clear. That's why they got here. I think in terms of who has an advantage, you could argue that Oklahoma, coming off the win yesterday, has that momentum that they can pull into today. But at the same time, I feel like Florida State's being slept on a little bit. They are, just a little bit. And they've been getting runners on base consistently throughout this championship series. Even if they leave them on, they've been getting them on. They've been making things happen. They've been starting early. So if they can do that, I don't know. It's honestly, it's going to be a war. And that's the thing. It's the last game of the season. So anything is possible and everything's going to be left out on the table.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. All right, Victor, now we will let you go and get settled in before your flight.
Yes.
He's getting a flight, Jenna. He's going to a flight during Game 3.
What are you
I'll be
doing?
watching the game on the flight.
So we still get the ratings. We'll get the ratings out of you.
You better,
Yes.
you better contribute that way. All right,
I will
Vic,
be
we'll
contributing to the ratings. Trust me.
All right, Vic, we'll talk to you in a little bit. All right, that's Victor at the airport at Will Hobby there. Jenna, obviously the hot topic that people are asking right now in the chat room, who starts and how would you handle the pitching staffs? I've come up with this theory, and you tell me if you think I'm crazy. I just have a feeling, I could be proven wrong, that Lonnie Alameda and Florida State may go by committee. In other words, they start one pitcher, go through the batting order once against this Oklahoma offense, and then bring in another pitcher to go to second. So, for example, I could see him starting Watson. I've kind of gone on record. I think she starts Watson, who didn't pitch Game 2. Then you bring in Sandercock in relief and go by committee against this lineup, because as Oklahoma has shown, if they see a pitcher a second or third time in the order, that could be some trouble. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I don't think you're crazy. No. I mean, both of these teams throughout this entire season have had that by committee approach. So it's like, well, what did you do to get you here? Makes sense to continue doing that. So the by committee concept makes sense. There's the sort of just competitor in me, spectator in me, softball fan, media, all that stuff in me that wants to see best on best, which would be Sandercock and G. Juarez. Yeah. But you have to be smart about it. The thing is I think everyone needs to be ready. Everyone on both pitching staffs has to be ready, especially for Florida State. I do think they're going to have that mindset of by committee to where everyone's got to be ready at any time. Those Oklahoma bats, it's ridiculous. I mean, when you have pinch hitters coming off the bench who are hitting well over 300, it's a little tough. There's no break at all. So the only break you can have is to create that yourself by bringing in other pitchers and having them work together as a staff. So I think Florida State will definitely probably do that. But with Oklahoma, I have a hard time thinking that they'll go with anyone else than G. Juarez. I mean, right. This is who got you there. It's also like, this is the last shot you got at using her. This is it. This is the end of her college career. So if you want to think about it from that perspective as well, she's moving on. She's going to play in Athletes Unlimited. She's going pro later this year. So this is it. This is the last time you even have the opportunity to use that tool in your toolbox.
And she's been their best pitcher in the World Series. She's got them here. I agree, but I don't know if we're both like old school thinking, right? Because I feel like, Jenna, and you've been around the sport now, you'll cover it now after playing it. I think more and more softball, there's a lot more baseball thinking when it comes to handling pitching staffs. Like, I just wonder about that. I do think it's going to be Juarez, Sale in some order for Oklahoma. I don't think we're going to see Nicole May. I think they're going to go with their two seniors here, win or lose. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I think that Nicole May will be like an if necessary. If we already go through the first two pitchers and Florida State's just coming out hot, then yes, of course you have to make the change. But, I think you have to play to the game and to win. But there is that aspect of like, all right, here are some seniors that we know that we can rely on. And it's their last game. There's that emotional aspect that goes into it too. The thing about it though is like every time I think I have it figured out with what Patty Gasso is going to do, she does something different. She has like this unconventional approach that I maybe wouldn't have predicted. So I feel like it's hard to be like, oh, she'll definitely do this because we've seen her pull out so many different things out of the hat. But I do think that it's fair to say that G. Juarez and Sale will be who we're looking at most.
People are asking questions. Look at that. You already become popular. People are asking you questions here. Do you think that you would you pitch to Alo, or is the Oklahoma lineup too deep to the point where, and I agree. I think that's the point. The problem is the lineup's too deep. Sometimes you just don't have an option, right?
Sometimes it's true. And actually up until yesterday, it had been a little bit, at least on her standards, before she had a hit. She had a little bit of a drought there. Again, this is on Alo standards, not on necessarily your average player standards. It had been like, I think she was 0 for 6, or it had been several at-bats since she had gotten a hit. And whereas she averages, a home run every 5 and something at-bats, right? So my thing is, I think you can pitch to these hitters, but you have to be smart about how you do it. Like most of the home runs that we've seen in this World Series, not just with Oklahoma, them included, but really across the board, if you look at the replays, those are right in the cookie zone. Like they are right there, belt high. Like it's a miss on the pitcher's part. And when you have talented hitters, and even if you just have good hitters, let alone these top tier player of the year type hitters, that's what they're going to do with it. Like it's going to leave the yard. And with a lot of pitchers having a lot of velocity as well, it doesn't take much. It's going to go out just as quick, if not faster, than it came in. So I think you just have to be careful. I think you have to keep it down in the zone. Like, so I think a lot of these have been sort of like missed rise balls or screwballs that are too high, things like that. It's like, we got to keep it down in the zone to keep it in the ballpark if you want a shot.
Who's the key player for Florida State offensively to get, to have success today? Because we're spending time on Oklahoma's offense. But what about Florida State? Mudge has been a big factor at the top of the order. She was held hitless in game 2. That's kind of my choice. Who's your choice?
So she's obviously been a spark plug for the lineup. So you hope that she shows up to set the tone. That's what you need out of your leadoff. I would say Mason also has been huge for Florida State in terms of not only she's left the yard, she's hit those home runs. Like, and we're so used to seeing those, especially when you got Oklahoma on the other side of things. But she's also like legging out singles in the infield as well. Like she's making things happen offensively, and she seems really like calm, cool, collected while she's doing it. And that I think can't be underestimated, because it's being able to not let the moment get bigger than you. And I think she's done a good job of that so far in key moments. So I think she's one to look out for as well.
What has impressed you about Florida State in this run, making it again through the losers bracket? If they win today, that would be 9 straight elimination wins at the Women's College World Series going back to 2018. That would set the new record. They're currently tied with like one of the UCLA teams in the past. Just talk about that. I mean, we got 2 teams that have made it to the losers bracket. So, I mean, that's impressive in itself. But for Florida State to do it in 18 and trying to do it again here in 21 after getting shut out by UCLA, they come back, eliminate Arizona, and basically end Mike Kendrea's career, which I'm going to ask you about in a little bit. After all, you're a Pac-12 Network analyst, which, by the way, you have broken our Arizona monopoly on our show. We've had many Arizona analysts joining us. Kenzie Fowler, who we've had Christy Fox, the head coach of he was an Arizona alum, so we'll talk some Pac-12. But they beat Arizona, beat Oklahoma State in the morning, in the 2 and 3 in the morning, and then beat Alabama twice. How have they done it?
I think they focus on the little things. And you'll notice that they celebrate the little things just as much as the big things. Like I'm seeing, bunts, they're going nuts in the dugout, screaming their heads off just as much as they would for a home run. And I think it's being able to realize that those little things matter, and to be able to execute on those fundamental things. Like they tend to bunt, Oklahoma, we've talked about it nonstop throughout this entire season that they're known for the long ball, but Florida State can lay down a squeeze really effectively. I was really impressed with one of the relays that they had when Sydney Sherrill actually moved from third base recently over to second base, didn't skip a beat, and it was beautiful play at home plate. I think it's those little things are what add up for them. They don't take anything for granted. And I think that's why they've made it this far.
Defensively, I think is a key factor. I thought Oklahoma played a clean game in game 2, unlike game 1. Florida State caused havoc, had 3 steals in game 1. Oklahoma only given up 2 steals, I think, the whole year when Kenzie Hansen was behind the plate. That was controlled in game 2. I think that's a big factor, too, defensively, especially, I don't know, how much is humidity going to play a factor in that from a player standpoint?
Well, immediately the player in me, my first reaction is like, nope, can't make excuses about the elements, got to play, keep your head down, get it done. But obviously you have to think about it. I think obviously it starts with hydration and just making sure that your body is in the best place it can be to compete. So that started yesterday, going into today as well. I used to do the little things, there's a reason why pitchers use rosin bags or touch the dirt a lot. Do that as a fielder as well. And the outfielder might be a little tougher. Maybe go to the warning track real quick, get some dirt. But I think it's going to have to be just not letting too many of those things in, meaning you have to acknowledge it and you have to do whatever you can to make it a better situation, but you don't have to be overwhelmed by all the little things that are happening at the moment. And it's like, if I'm thinking too much about humidity, then am I not paying attention enough to getting ready to react if this hitter hits something to me defensively? But my thing is, I think I could argue that defense might be the factor tonight, because you look at both offensive lineups, very capable. They can clearly score runs. We've seen it this whole time. Both pitching staffs are able to at least keep their teams in the game. Those things have been very consistent. And if they kind of just keep doing what they're doing and keep making adjustments, just continue on that train. But the defense, we've had amazing moments, but we've also had some messy moments. And this is throughout the entire Women's College World Series, but including this championship series as well. So I think sometimes it's not just who's going to step up and get the runs and have that timely hitting. Sometimes it's also who's going to make the first mistake. Who is actually going to allow the other team to capitalize on your mistake, and then that gives them the advantage. So I think the defense is I think it's been a huge factor all season long. I'm also sort of a defensive purist. I'm very hard on defensive players, especially infielders, being a former infielder. Yeah. But I really do think that that's going to be huge in this game.
Well, think about game 2, how Oklahoma's 6th inning started. It was Jennings reaching on the air. That opened, and then it set up the Allo 2-run homer, and Oklahoma took off from that point on. So that was a play that made a big play. And I think it could be something like that here again today. We're here in the Circle Live. We're getting you set for game 3 of the National Championship Series, Oklahoma and Florida State here. Jenna Becerra joining us, Pac-12 Network analyst, host of podcast, host. By the way, I can't believe this. As we're reading this on the ticker, the only Stanford Cardinal to hit grand slams in back-to-back games. Did I read that right?
Yes, that is true.
That's a pretty good list. There's been a few great Cardinal greats that have played there. One that's going to be in the booth on ESPN, who's the greatest of them all. She didn't do that. Wow.
I mean, plenty of other things she did amazingly well. But yes, just so happened to be same pitcher and everything, 24 hours apart.
That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. We got questions for you. I know people are I know you're shocked. There's some Pac-12 fans that got questions for you. One is asking about the Stanford team for next year. But before we get into that, I want to hit you up about the big news, obviously off the field this week. Mike Candrea officially announcing his retirement after 36 seasons. Caitlin Lowe named the new head coach. Let's start with Coach Candrea. You competed against Coach Candrea. Your thoughts, and obviously you've covered now Coach Candrea as part of the media. Your thoughts on Coach Candrea?
He is the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time, and I don't say that lightly. And it's not just with collegiate softball. That's the other piece to this puzzle as well. And a lot of folks have talked about it on social media and such too. But everybody associated with softball has been in some way, whether directly or indirectly, positively impacted by Mike Candrea. Period. He is the one who has laid the foundation. He's a cornerstone of the Pac-12 conference, which has laid the foundation for NCAA softball and where we are today with the game. That is the foundation. He's the winningest coach ever. So you have that tangible evidence of success with all of his championships as well on the Olympic stage, etc. But also what stands out in addition to the results is how his alumni and student athletes feel about him as well. And not only that, but fellow coaches who have looked up to him, really count him as a mentor, somebody they want to emulate, even other amazing coaches, like within the Pac-12, for example. Heather Tarr was like, I don't know softball without Mike Candrea, right? So he is, honestly, there has never been another. I don't know if there ever will be another. He's just what softball is all about. And I will also add the idea that while I love seeing more and more female head coaches, we also need male allies for women's sports. And he has been an amazing example of that.
I agree. How do you think about Caitlin Lowe and the job? She'll have to follow the legend, but she's there. She's she understands it. She's part of the family. And it's a cool stat. 6 of the 9 Pac-12 head coaches now currently are alums of where they're coaching.
Yes, which is amazing. I'm very excited about Caitlin Lowe. I mean, I think she's, yes, one of the 6. And the thing about it is just because you had a lot of success as a player doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an amazing coach. Like, there are a lot of hats that coaches wear, from people management to actually teaching, passing on your knowledge. There's so many different aspects to it. Recruiting, which also means selling, sales, that sort of aspect. But I think what has been so cool is that these 6 coaches, so we're talking about Caitlin Lowe from Arizona, obviously. We're also talking about Stanford's Jessica Allister, Cal's Chelsea Spencer, Washington's Heather Tarr, and then you look at UCLA with Kelly I, and then Amy Hogue over in Utah. So that's who we're looking at as people who have actually walked the paths that they are now guiding their players through. They've literally been in their shoes. So it's just an irreplaceable experience that they're able to relate to their players on. And I think with Caitlin Lowe having been now not only played for Candrea at Arizona, but also on Team USA, but she's been a part of the tradition and the foundation that's been laid at Arizona. She's also been on the staff recently in terms of how is Arizona moving forward and building on that tradition. And what I loved, actually, is in her statement, she was saying, she even promised the Wildcat community, I promise you, I'm not just going to do my best impression of Coach Candrea. I'm going to be the best version of myself. And I think that is huge, huge, because when we are trying to be someone else, no matter what we're doing in life, we're not setting ourselves up for success. And I think her knowing that right away, that like, hey, I'm going to take the lessons that he gave me, but like, we have to move forward and I'm going to build this program with my players into the future is very, very important. So I'm really excited to see what's happening down in Tucson.
Yeah, I'm excited for her and Coach Taryn Moat. I've known both. I've covered both. I think they're going to do great at Arizona. I think it was the right move. And I like that Arizona didn't just, they just took care of it quickly. And I think, and kept it in the family. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, you've seen it with what Coach Allister has done at Stanford. And that's the question that won Los Angeles had the question about Stanford next year. I think that next year could be a big year for Stanford. I spoke to Coach Allister prior to the Fayetteville Regional, the day before, we had media availability. I had a lengthy conversation with her. What they had to go through, they didn't start their first practice till like February 4th, which is like a week before everybody else started their seasons. Yep. And I thought they were peaking towards the end of the season. And I think when you look at next year, Washington's got a lot of talent they got to replace. They're going to be young. Arizona loses those great seniors. They're young. I think that's one of the reasons also I think Coach Candrea wanted to go out with this senior class. They're going to be young. UCLA loses Rachel Garcia, Bubba Nichols. They still got a lot of talent. They'll probably be the favorites going into the Pac-12. But I think Stanford, Coach Allister did an underrated heck of a job this year with considering where they started and where they ended up, getting to the regional final in Fayetteville. And they have a lot of youth, especially in the circle with a talented young arm. Your thoughts on the Cardinal here going into 2022?
I think it's all up from here, honestly. I mean, what Coach Allister has done, and again, somebody who has walked this path as a player before, coming back to build the program, after already having built up a program in Minnesota. Like, let's not forget, there are still some of these positive implications or repercussions that we're seeing with Minnesota and how they've become this sort of powerhouse started with her. So now she's coming back to Stanford and starting that all over again and turning around this program. The 2019 season was a really fun season to cover because she sort of had that first year in 2018 where they changed a lot mentally. That was the biggest thing. And they were able to get certain things in place, but 2019 is when they sort of were able to reap the benefits of that change and that shift within the program. And for her, she is kind of no nonsense, one of the most competitive people I've ever met. She was my assistant coach when I played at Stanford my freshman year. And she was one of the people who recruited me. And she is the word that I always think of to just describe her in general. And she uses this word a lot. It's just grit. Like that is who she is. And I think with this team, I've also seen a really exciting just level of camaraderie where they're all extremely supportive of each other, where maybe you could see some sort of like internal team competition for certain spots, especially this past year more than ever with the extended rosters that we're seeing because of the eligibility granted in 2020. It has been something where she's been able to get the team and all the players to buy in. So I think, yes, you got Elena Vaughter, who's been unbelievable. Tatum Boyd was injured for a lot of this past season, but she was a huge part of the early 2020 success. Like, it was the best start Stanford softball had in a decade in 2020. And then they kind of just got stopped short as did everybody else, but they were able to keep that momentum rolling in 2021. And yeah, they didn't have their freshmen on campus whatsoever. They had never experienced true college living until right before season started. It is wild. It's unbelievable. Like, fall ball is so incredibly key for everybody, but especially for freshmen. And they do have this sort of like leadership at the top in terms of age and seniority, and the bottom in terms of these newcomers. So I think they're graduating a very heavy leadership class. Like, I'm thinking especially about like Montana Dixon, Tegan Cowles, for example, who have been just mainstays in the lineup. Dixon's incredible defensively as well. But I think they have a bright future ahead and a larger pitching staff than we had maybe when I was playing, which is always a benefit. So I think there's nothing but good to come for Stanford softball.
I really do. I think, and then the key is, does she find the next Kendall Lindemann for that offense? Because they've got a lot of speed. So, I think they're still missing that power game. And I think that's going to come as she's getting her recruits in. I mean, she just got there a couple of years ago and has done a great job. And I'm excited about Chelsea Spencer at Cal taking over that program. I think bringing some energy to that program. We're going to definitely go more in depth on Pac-12 in future episodes with you. This is not going to be the last time we're going to be talking. Trust me. I'm sure Victor warned you. We tend to go lengthy on our podcast, but you have a podcast. You can relate because you have your own podcast. I want you to talk about the podcast you have and where people can find it and what's it about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Actually, funny you mentioned Chelsea Spencer because she has been the last couple episodes last week and then this week's, which is coming out tomorrow. But it's called Bleav in Softball with the Bleav Podcast Network. Bleav is spelled BLEAV. So sometimes people get confused on that, but it is Bleav in Softball, and it's focused on everything in the softball world. So college softball, international, pro, everything. And you can find it literally anywhere that you normally get your podcasts. You can download and listen. Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. It's also on Bleav.com. And we're on YouTube this year. That was a new thing in season 2 this season that we decided to do. So you can also find the YouTube channel and subscribe and watch there.
I think you and I are the only ones that have had Chelsea like in-depth interviews since she took the Cal job, which has been great. She's awesome. I'm excited for her and her abilities for that program. All right, let's give me your couple keys to today's game and then a prediction here. And I don't know what you're doing later, but we may have to ask you to see if you're available for our post-game show and kind of reflect on this game. But give me your thoughts on the keys to the game for people to watch, and who do you think wins?
So like I said, I think defense is going to be huge. Like, we have to keep it clean, minimize the mistakes so you minimize the opportunities for the other team. And that goes for both sides. I think the other key to the game is probably going to be I think you talked about it earlier in the show. It's going to be more mental, which is not pressing too much. Oklahoma's been upfront about the fact that they do that a bit, but also just kind of enjoying the moment, if that makes sense. Like, like I said before, it's like, don't let the moment get bigger than you. I think if these players can really just leave it all out there mentally, just kind of like, hey, you've done all the preparation, you have all the information, let it all go and just play. That's going to be the other key as well. In terms of prediction, it's interesting. It's a tough one because I think this is going to be an all-out war. I think they have two different styles of softball as well in terms of offense too. You got the long ball versus kind of the manufacturing of runs. I think I'm going to go with Florida State. And the reason is because I think that they are going to be able to keep chipping away. They've been doing that the whole time. Like I said, getting base runners on, making things happen. They've been putting pressure on the defense for Oklahoma. So I think if they can continue that and just stay the course, they might be able to come out on top. Won't be easy, though.
And they're playing loose. They're playing with house money. A lot of people didn't – the pressure's on Oklahoma. They're supposed to win the national title. They were the favorites going in. So I think – I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think defense, I'm with you on that. I think it's going to be a tight game. Hopefully it's a great game that we're talking about afterwards. Jenna, this has been awesome having you on. This won't be the last time we're having you. In fact, we're going to try to see maybe we could sneak you into the post-game show as well later, depending on how long the game goes and your schedule and our schedule. But thank you so much for taking the time, bringing us some knowledge. Great stuff. And once again, tell the audience where they can find you.
Yes, I am on Twitter at Jenna Becerra01, Instagram at Jenna Becerra, and then it's at Bleav in Softball on both platforms as well if you want to reach out to me. And then again, available anywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
All right, Jenna, great stuff. We hope to talk to you soon.
All righty, sounds good.
Awesome. Great stuff from Jenna Becerra joining us here on the show, live show here, as we're just now got 10, 15 minutes to go. As good set here for a few minutes here before the conclusion and get you set for this championship game. How hot is it going to be? The crowd will be wild. Some of the comments, we'll see. I mean, the afternoon game, I would think people are getting out of work to get in there, right? I think that's definitely a factor there from that standpoint there. So we'll be on for about 10 more minutes. Give me more questions. We'll see what happens. Both teams are sharp. How hot is it going to be? We're hoping to have Justin hop in here from the stadium, Justin McLeod, in a few minutes to kind of give us that answer and see how hot it is. Victor was still in the airport. He might join us as well. We'll see how that goes here. But certainly it's going to be a fascinating scene on the afternoon game. Last game of the season, though. I think everybody's kind of making all the efforts there. But Bengal Gangster thinks the crowd will be wild today. I would think it was pretty electric last night. It was very electric last night. And we'll see what it is. But I think both teams are going to leave it on the field. I do think it's going to be 100-plus heat index, says Ryan Lopez. It could be. I think that was the kind of the projections going in that by first pitch it would be over 100 for the heat index. So it's going to be hot. So we'll see what happens with there. I'm curious how the ball will fly. Ronnie Pickett's chiming in. That's why Sooner Boomer run after a touchdown, not home runs. But yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. I'm curious if the ball flies, if the ball just kind of dies. I think that'll be something to look for early in the game as on fly balls. As I'm looking at the weather, 90 degrees right now. It's currently what it says here at Oklahoma City. So it's going to be humid. I mean, I've been there for some of those hot afternoon sessions, and it's going to be humid. And I'll be very curious conditioning. But these teams are deep, and I think this is where the conditioning they've been doing all season long will pay off for them from that standpoint. And we'll see what happens there. As Victor now rejoins us from the airport. Not as hot as it is probably right now at the stadium. But
no.
Jenna was fantastic. We'll try to see if we can get her on for the post game. This is kind of interesting. It's funny because a lot of coaches are waiting for this game to end because they were supposed to start recruiting.
Yes, the dead period was supposed to be lifted today, but because Oklahoma won last night, the dead period is extended through until tomorrow.
Yes. So that's why we're kind of keeping the coaches out of this show for now because they got other things in their mind. They haven't had a chance to see a recruit in person in over a year. So it's kind of an
Almost
important
500 days, depending on what coaching staff you're asking.
Wow. It is kind of silly, though, that they're have to wait till this game ends. Like, really? Like, do you really think Patty Gasso and Lonnie Alameda are in a disadvantage if they get one less day to recruit than everybody else?
I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be on TV playing for a national title. I would argue they're already recruiting.
Ding, ding, ding. Ding,
Right?
ding, 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 ding. You are correct, sir.
So I just find that weird that they got to wait until this game ends. It's so weird. But, softball has some weird stuff going on. I know Justin's trying to hop in.
Yes.
As he's trying to figure it out. So we'll hope to get him on here before we go off the air to kind of give his thoughts from the stadium, what it looks like. Although that connection could, may have other things to differ on.
It is funky, as I have had a few times happen when I'm trying to go live.
Oh, no, he's having technical issues. Oh, he's having Mike and Cam were issues. Oh, boy, technical issues. So we may not have Justin. All right. Well,
hey, I'm surprised. Look, I'm surprised Justin got to the stadium as quick as he did after he dropped me off at the airport today. So that in itself is impressive.
How was the traffic?
Oh, it wasn't too bad, actually. We took the quickest route possible, so it wasn't too bad, honestly. Traffic flowed very well. I'll put it to you like this. Traffic getting out of the stadium plus rush hour traffic is going to be very interesting in Oklahoma City today. So,
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that goes from that standpoint. So you mentioned earlier, we talked about this earlier. It's going to be hot, humid. Hydration will be a key. Energy is going to be a factor here, right? Who can keep the energy up?
Yes. Yeah, and I think, Eric, that's why it's going to be so important to get off to a good start, because that momentum can carry you in absence of that energy. So if you're Oklahoma, you get a quick 2-run. Let's say you get a home run from Allo in that first inning. That's going to get the crowd, which is already going to be excited, even more juiced up. And Florida State, they've scored first in the 2 games of the championship series. So if they can do that again today and get their crowd excited and put the pressure on Oklahoma. So scoring first, particularly that first time through the order, is going to be a very big difference. And yes, Bengal gangster, I agree with you. I hope they hydrated last night. This is where the strength and conditioning coaches, this is the game where they earn their salary today. All the off-season training, all the work that they do in the fall and in the spring, this is the game where you earn your money.
Ain't that the truth? You're right. I'll be curious how both teams come out early, too. Does anybody kind of, I mentioned, how is the body language? How is the ball carrying? Is there any nerves? Is there a defensive miscue? I agree with Jenna. I think defense is a big factor. We kind of always gloss over it, but I think to game 2, you had the error by Muffley that opened the floodgates that set up the 2-run homer by Allo. Yeah,
and defense helped Florida State win the game in game 1 with Haley Harding with that double play in the second inning. And Donahue made 2 spectacular plays in consecutive games. If she doesn't make either one of those plays, Florida State's probably celebrating a national championship right now.
That's funny. That's too funny. That is too funny. Well, Victor, it's time to make predictions here. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, because I've been so right with my predictions so far in this championship series. I originally said Oklahoma will win in 3. It's going to be a very close game. I don't expect it to be an 8-4 score like we have with Florida State or a 6-2 score with Oklahoma. I think it's going to be close throughout. At the end of the day, because this is where, if there's ever a game where having that crowd will be to an advantage for Oklahoma, this is the game. That's the key. Having those alums, having all that Sooner red, all that Sooner crimson in the stands, I think gives Oklahoma that lift to get them over the top. Oklahoma 4, Florida State 3, Mackenzie Donahue, your most outstanding player.
Wow. Who do you have pitching then? You have Juarez pitching?
I will have Sale pitching, but Juarez comes out of the bullpen to close it out.
Wow, Donnie. So you're predicting Donahue to have another big game.
Yes, because here's the thing. Going back to what Jenna said, offense and defense. She had the big hit in the 6th inning to put the game away for OU, and she had the leaping catch to left field the next half inning.
Oh, that was a great play. I agree. We got Bengal against 6-3 Oklahoma. Some people are saying Juarez versus Watson. See, so this is what I'm going to say. If Juarez starts and pitches like she did yesterday, she's the most outstanding player of the World Series.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
If she starts, if she comes in relief early and dominates, and they win.
Yes.
If she doesn't, then yeah, I think your McKenzie pick is good. Although if Jocelyn were to have another big game, think about it. Right now, she could have the most defining hit of this series. That 2-run homer changed the complexion of that game. If Oklahoma goes on to win today and she has a big game, you could argue that she's the most outstanding player.
Possible,
she changed
absolutely.
the complexion of the series. So
it kind of comes down to, for OU, if they win, it'll be Donahue, Allo, or Juarez. Is it down to those three?
Yeah.
And then on the other side, if Florida State wins, it's either going to be Mudge or Elizabeth Mason.
I would throw Sandra Cock in there. She's thrown a lot of innings. Let's say she throws a gem today if she gets the ball, for example, for a lengthy game. I could be her, but I agree with you. Mason, I agree with Jenna too. Mason's the wild card because she's a clutch player. I mean, she's hit a ton of home runs here at Oklahoma City, not just this year, but in 18. So I agree. I think it's Mudge. I think Mudge has to get on base. For Florida State to score runs, they have to. The top of the order has to get on base. I don't think it's an accident they were held to 2 runs yesterday with the top of the order being controlled. So I think, to me, Mudge is a big factor. But I like your Mason. I would say, it's one of those two for Florida State if they win. Although I think Sandra Cock, if she gets the ball and starts and throws a great game like she was yesterday, will be in consideration.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
I'm gonna go Mudge. I'll go bold. I won't go Wilbon. I'll go Mudge because if she has a good game, she'll set the record for most hits in the Women's College World Series.
Yes. But there's something about Elizabeth Mason, Eric, in elimination games.
Sure.
Going back to 2018, she hit the 3-run home run late against UCLA to force the unnecessary game, and then eventually knock out UCLA. She hit the home run against Alabama on Monday to chase out Montana Fouts in that elimination game. Had the home run in game 1. There are certain players that are born to be in moments like this. Elizabeth Mason is one of those players. So don't be surprised if either early in this game or late in the game, it comes down to an at-bat between Juarez versus Elizabeth Mason. And whoever wins that matchup could win the game for that team and could win the most outstanding player because of that.
I agree. All right, that will be the story to see what happens with that. Some people are saying, don't forget Nicole Mendez. That's not a bad dark horse.
Yeah.
That's
She's really come on as a lay. I think Gasso inserting her into that 4th spot to give some help behind Allo, I feel has been a real game changer. Her and entering Donahue in the lineup at that 6th spot as well.
I agree. I think it's going to be tremendous. All right, we're going to let everybody go. Victor's got to get ready to catch a flight. We're going to be on in the post-game show. We'll have some different guests, probably Justin from the hotel, or if he's in a car, probably, because apparently the stadium's not working for him. We'll figure it out. We'll keep it on social media. We'll figure out what we'll be on it after the game and recap it. Who won the national championship and why they won the national championship. Keep it here in the Circle SB on YouTube. Subscribe. We'll also have the post-game press conferences on our YouTube page. That should be a lot of fun. Victor may join us. Who knows? By the time the game ends, maybe he's landed.
Who knows?
That could be a fun game. Will Victor have landed by the time the game is ended?
Huh. Interesting.
Where's Victor going? He's going. Nicholas is asking, where's Victor going?
Home. That's where I'm going. Home.
Exactly. That's where he's going home. All right, we're going to let you all grab some food, get yourself hydrated yourselves, and get ready to watch a great softball game. Last college softball game of 2021, 3 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. And we'll be on a little bit after the game and recap it, which hope is a great game. So for Victor Anderson from the airport, thanks to Jenna Becerra for joining us. I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of In the Circle live from OKC.
Good night, Canada, or good afternoon, Canada.